Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hedgebrook's sixth ever Cottage Chat. We have a couple of wonderful Hedgebrook alums to join me today, and I'm really excited to hear them talk about sisterhood, talk about finding each other at a residency, and talk about joy, because that's what I always love to talk about during these Cottage Chats. As you may know, the Cottage Chats are a live free streaming event on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. For those of us following on on any of those platforms, we love to see your comments and in the chats. We will highlight them. We have our team waiting by to engage with you. We want to know what you're thinking, what questions you might have for our wonderful alum today. And this is provided for free just to give us a sense of community and connection during this hard time. We wanted to bring the voices of our alum more and more into the public eye and amplify them as best as we can. And exciting things are happening for both of these writers. So I'm really excited to dig in with them and find out what's going on with them and celebrate with them because they have some exciting projects coming live to you and you should know about them. So with me today, I have Michelle Ruiz Kiel and Diana Chen, and they met, I believe, in 2020, but I'm going to let them tell the tale. Let's welcome Michelle and Diana.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome. So glad that you both could join me. I'm going to just say, Michelle, I met because Britt, our program manager, was like, she's really awesome. She met you in March of 2020?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
okay.
yeah.
And when we were looking for our partnership for when we were looking for teaching artists, your name came up. And then you were like, by the way, I have this friend that I met at Hedgebrook. So tell us a little bit about how you met.
We were both in the same cohort at Hedgebrook, and it was actually the last cohort before lockdown. So it was a really interesting time for us to be together. It was like, it started off normal. We're all excited. And then as it gets near the end, we're all like, are we, the people that are flying, one person was flying like back to the Netherlands. Like, are we going to be able to get you home? Like it was really, so I think it was like some trauma bonding with what was going on. But no, we met at Hedgebrook just like around the table. Diana shared some of her work and I really loved it. And it was just, she shared a really wild story that I was like, this is amazing. Who is this person that thought of this? I was like, there's some stuff in there that I will really enjoy getting to know. So that, of course, intrigued me right away. And we were really lucky, though. I feel like our whole cohort actually stays in touch and does a monthly writing group.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. And Michelle, you actually got us started on that because I know we had the group thread while we were at Hedgebrook and we would be communicating and trying to plan and coordinate walks sometimes or just checking in on each other. And then Michelle, I think you were the one who was like, would you guys be interested in reading some work? And I think we all just really needed that in 2020 as well. I think that was like a huge, it made a huge difference for me to be able to have people to just check in, share work, maybe just, talk a little bit more lightly about it without too many expectations either. So being able to keep that going has been wonderful.
So it's just a sharing space that you all curate every month, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do. We take turns submitting work, and then we just get critique. One of us goes for it. We get critique back. We get support. Everything from like, hey, I think you should send it to this lit magazine, and it was really, really helpful because it's so easy, especially at the beginning of starting something new. At least for me, I was feeling like I was in a weird echo chamber, and I was trying to do something different with my work than I had done before. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, and in a way, part of my like muse writing brain was still in conversation with all of them anyway. I had finished up a big project while I was there. Mm-hmm. So I feel like, if I my brain was sort of in this habit of like, okay, if you're stuck, ask these people, they will know.
That's awesome.
That's true.
Yeah, so you touch on something that we talk about a lot with some of our virtual programming when people ask about writing community. The truth is, my standard go-to line is a writing community is born by somebody saying, I'm going to be here at the same time, same place every time until it catches on. Like that's what it takes, is to say like, we're going to meet monthly, and sometimes somebody won't be able to meet, but as long as that one person is willing to like be the tether or the anchor, together for a group, you can build a magical thing. I love that the whole group is still in touch. Before we talk about your work, though, can we circle back to this wild and crazy story, Diana? Is there a, you don't have to share that one maybe, but I know that, can you tell us a little bit about what intrigued Michelle so much?
Sure. Well, I knew Michelle was very in tune with fairy tale worlds and, different seams into like surreal within the reality as well. So I think the one I shared with her was a ghost story, and it was the third ghost story in a linked trio where it begins with a grandmother figure to the mother and then finally to the daughter. And it takes place over the course of like 10 to 15 years, I'd say.
Wow.
And so I think that last piece was the new draft I'd worked on at Hedgebrook. I had been doing a lot of revisions, and then I was like, finally, okay, I'm going to start writing a new story.
Wow, y'all were productive. I thought it was a personal story. I was like, what wild and crazy thing do we need to know about you, Diana? That's where I thought we were going. But you were talking about your work. Tell us, you have a short story collection coming out soon, correct?
Expected in early 2023. The trio of ghost stories is a linked piece throughout there, and then there will be other maternal voices, female voices throughout too.
Awesome. Is there a title?
It's going through a few titles right now. I mean, I'm not committed to any title at the moment.
You have some time. That's true. I love that. So do you primarily do short fiction work?
Yeah, I'd say I have mostly written short fiction, and I have had a lot of different attempts at writing a novel. And so I think it's when you are trying something new and trying to learn how to, I guess, commit to a longer work, it's been really nice to be able to share just different pieces from that too. And also just to like have other people know that it exists, that it is something that you spend time with, that you think about. You're
not just shouting into the void like, I have an idea. So it sounds like magical realism or fantastical is a common thread between both of y'all's work then.
It was funny. I just spent a bunch of time with your collection, Diana, and I was thinking about how it was just really instructive for me because I feel like you're just as comfortable adding in something fantastical as not. And that there's a similar, like, not even like they're all different, like tonally, and, the characters are different, the stories are different, but there's like there's kind of a eunice, I guess, that I'm starting to pick up now that I've read all of these stories that's consistent, whether or not there's a fantastic element or not. And I really love that because that's, so when I'm writing, I'm not setting out to like write something fantastical, but sometimes, you turn left and there it is. Like, okay.
You have a big turn, Michelle.
Yeah. That's like, that is, almost the definition of magical realism, right? Though, is that like common day, you're walking through real and then all of a sudden something fantastical happens.
Yeah.
Well, what about you? What did you finish while you were at Hedgebrook?
I finished, well, here, I'll PSA my little.
Hey, come on.
It's like I've got a million of them in there. They're all here. Why can't I find my own? It's so funny. There it is. Okay.
Summer in the City of Roses, y'all.
Yes, Summer in the City of Roses. I finished it. I sold it on proposal. It's my second book, so I sold it on proposal, and I was so stuck. I've never had writer's block, and then there I was with just like kind of, and also I was kind of like not loving the book, and I think a book needs some love. You know what I mean? Like I was just really, I don't know. I had a very weird relationship with this book that was not healthy and not productive. And then I got to Hedgebrook, and honestly, I had about 40,000 words when I got there, and I needed about, it came in at about 93. So I was like half done, and and my deadline was the day the residency ended. Like that was it.
Oh.
And there was even like a little bit of fear on my part that I wasn't going to be able to get it done. And now I know that if that had happened, it probably would have been fine. But I didn't know that. And I'm like, they're going to take it away. I'm going to give them the advance back. And I'm going to, I don't know. I guess I keep feeling like the door is going to get slammed shut if I do something wrong. So I had that vibe very much. And I think that was kind of what was making me stuck, actually.
Yeah.
So when I got to Hedgebrook, I don't know even how it happened. I feel like space time was like different or something, because I wrote the whole end, the whole second half. I was able to go through and do like a second pass through it to make sure it wasn't crazy. And it was actually very solid. It really didn't need that much. I felt like it was solid enough to send my editor for sure, which was weird. Um, so yeah, that's what I worked on. And so I, sent it, and it just came out in July 6th.
Let's dig into that a little bit. Do you feel like the pressure was more because you had already written a book and gotten it out in the world? Or you think that's where it came from, you think?
Somewhat. Also, I think, I had an interesting experience just about being like a public person with my work out in the world, because my first book came out the year I turned 50. I've been like really in like private family world. My world was like all just very sort of intimate, close people, just kind of deep sunken into the family reality. And my writing was this sort of other little secret world that I would inhabit. It wasn't like a public facing thing. And I hadn't even really done a ton of like public interface in the work world for many years either. So I just wasn't used to having that, like, I am a grown up out in the world persona. And then here's this thing that's so precious to me. And, I think I felt really, really, really exposed. And I think that it messed with me a little bit. And I think there was a lot of imposter syndrome there too. And I think Hedgebrook really helps with that, actually. Because I remember I was talking to Roja. We were walking up to our cabins one night, another one of our cohort. And I said, I just realized, like, all of these people like raised money, take care of this whole place, and did all of this work just so we can come here and write. And I just felt like, I don't know, I felt kind of legit at that moment. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I came in, as an alum, I remember the moment where it was like, I applied for years to not get in. And there's something about like, you get it at the right time, the like exact right time for you kind of thing. It happens, and it's something mystical. It's something magical. You either believe it or you don't. But I remember feeling like it was the confirmation that I was real. Like, I'm a real writer now because I have something like Hedgebrook behind me that believes in me, that believed in my writing enough. And it was more validating than publication. Way more validating than publication.
Yeah.
How about after, so you finished something, and this is for both of you, where did your writing go, or your writing practice evolve to or devolve to during the quarantine, during lockdown?
I think at Hedgebrook, I like printed out my whole manuscript for the first time, and I'd never done that before. So it was just sitting on the window. I took pictures of it, of course, but that's really great. And after I got the short story collections out there, like the short stories, I started focusing more on novels. And so for me, a lot of it, that time since then, has been working on something that's like a new format for me, a new form, and also doing more research and getting stuck and learning about when I need to step back and do research as well. Yeah. So
in some ways it almost, so as a poet, writing longer form is, even when I have the idea, it's like, it feels impossible because you have to have time. You have to be able to sink into the world to some degree, and not being able to sink into the world because you have to like go to work and you got to take care of your kid and all these things means that it's like a novel is just like too far of a reach for me at this point. But it feels like maybe some of the isolation actually ended up feeding you a little bit because you gave yourself the time. Is that how you? Is that?
It felt a little scary to be like to make a transition between projects while I was there, and I think we were all in different places with our projects, and currently still are, I think. But just being able to connect from those different places have been good. I will say, like this spring, I turned in my like first best effort draft of the short story collection, and meant to work on the novel again. And I just really like turned off for the summer, and it felt great. I've been, hiking and gardening and not thinking about it very much, and then easing back into writing a little bit. It's like it's waking up again, so that feels good.
Nice.
But, I'm just I started with just trying to get 20 minutes of writing in a day, not setting any like rules or expectations for it. I think I've gotten it up to maybe 40 minutes now. It's not every day, actually. It's most days, but I'll take most days.
Most days is great. How about you, Michelle?
Well, I mean, at first it was like so nice to have, I was just busy editing, right? And I was getting like, we were going back and forth and, you know, um, all of the business of it, like, finding the cover and the title was a whole thing. We couldn't get a title. It was like all that stuff was nice and distracting. And I still was having events for my first book too, and they'd all turn to Zoom events. So I was like in, that other writing mode, which is also weird. Like some people can do them both at once. I think that was also part of my problem with, having that second book on proposal was just that outward facing, kind of writer person mode is different than, the writing mode. And so like author mode, writer mode or something. So there was a little bit of that. And so I was kind of like enjoying the busyness, and then it was like out of my hands and the busyness was gone. And that is actually, I think when I was like, guys, I need help. Like we need to something, I need something. Cause I had this project I was working on before. So my first book, I thought it was going to be sold as an adult book. So I was working on an adult title as a follow-up. And when it got
here, by the way, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you for the PA. You can do that anytime. So that book. So I had this other thing I was working on, and so but then when it came out as a YA, I thought I should follow up with a YA. So this book kind of snuck in there, but that other one was still looming. But I sort of had this. Like for me, shorter form is harder. I've only ever written, I didn't write a ton of short stories before I wrote a novel. I wrote a play and then I wrote a novel. And so I that was like how I started as a writer writing that novel, and I just worked on it for 10 years, the same novel. So that scope was the amount that I knew how to work with. And actually, I've been really wanting to experiment with like flash pieces and, and just short stories. And I still am struggling with how to, fit everything in the way that I want and use language in the way that I want still, and have it be just tighter. And just, the whole structure of a short story is hard. I really like the big structure of a novel. That works well for me.
Interesting.
So the project I'm working on now, the adult project, is like a collection. It's a short story cycle. It's like, I really want it to feel like a novel, but it is also separate stories. And that's just really hard. It's like, I don't know how to do that really. So the learning curve is big.
I think Michelle and I are actually like trading forms right now.
Sounds like it. I was going to say, how do you do that when you want to approach something new? What do you do? Do you read? I mean, I think writers need to read. It doesn't make sense that you wouldn't know what else is out there, especially current stuff, because there's so many more brown and queer and non-mainstream voices that are starting to like really flood the mainstream. And so you can learn so much just from seeing it outside of old dead white guys, right? But when you're approaching like this new challenge for yourself of a longer form or a shorter form, what are your steps? What do you go through? Jump on in.
I've always read a lot of novels, so that part, feels familiar. I think maybe I've just been talking to people more about their process with longer works too.
Word. Okay.
And just everyone has different ways of doing it, different things they've learned.
Yeah. So having that writing community is helpful because not only to look at what you're trying and attempting, but to be like, I know you might not know about this trick. Kind of. I love that this dog is insistent on being a part of this show.
Here, Stella, show your face. Come here.
Of course, now
she will. No, I mean, now that she's 12, so I think, Diana, I should just loan you Stella because she really knows how about writing novels. That's what she does. She's a novel helper. Like when I start to write, she gets in this like deep snoozy sleep where she makes this little like whispery sighing snore that is so soothing, and it helps me. She always goes with me. She's so terrible. Her ball's under the bookcase and she gets really obsessed, and so she wants it, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And she gave up for about 10 minutes. Now she's back. Anyway, she's a very helpful assistant, but also very very demanding. very demanding, and she keeps asking for raises, and it's like she can't afford it anymore. But she has all the
got to keep you on point,
seniority.
Michelle.
What are you gonna do? Anyway, I don't know. I took some classes actually. That was really helpful for me. As I took some classes. I took a class with a friend of mine, Kimberly King Parsons, who writes really good short stories, and I got some great ideas. Oh, and I'd forgotten I even did it, but I had applied for the for Tin House, and I applied I thought, well, I'll only do it if I get a scholarship, and then I completely forgot about it. And then I did get the scholarship, so that was cool. And I got to study with Ramona Alcibel, who is a really lovely writer she does a lot of magic realism and kind of fabulous fiction, and is also such a good teacher, as it turns out. So I learned a lot there. Everybody's stories were amazing, and I haven't, I don't have an MFA, and so I felt like I wanted to go back, and I don't have like really formal writing education, and so I feel like this summer was my summer of classes, and I took a couple other one-off things. I did one with Kira Madden through Hedgebrook, which was amazing. And so I don't know. I feel like that helps me kind of get in the right head. And then reading short stories. I don't know why this is, Diana. I don't know if it's like this for you, but reading the work of people I know for some reason is more meaningful to me and more educational to me. Why is that? I don't even know why, but I feel like I feel like all these things that I was curious about, your stories kind of helped me figure out. I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. You're a good writer, so maybe that's it. I don't know.
So go ahead.
Oh, and writers, I feel like growing up have always just been like these mystical people, right? And so you get to Hedgebrook and you're reading through the journals as well, and you're like just the people who have been here before, and it's pretty amazing to be in the cabins where they've maybe left some creative energy for you. And I don't know. I think maybe reading people's work of people is like, okay, you kind of think through their steps more, maybe.
Or you have like insight maybe into their thoughts, their thinking, or you maybe got to get a sense of that we're all suffering from imposter syndrome a little bit, or don't know that we can do it until we did. And sometimes even after we did, we don't realize that we did it. I love that. So there's two things that I got from that, Michelle. One is reading the work of people helps, because you have something in your brain already about where they're coming from. And so even if it's nothing about their life, even if it's completely fictional or whatever, it's still it's almost like you can deconstruct how they built a little bit, because you know them.
Yeah.
And then also finding people whose work you love and trying to take a class with them or watch lectures with them or something, craft talks, whatever it is. I love that. I love the idea of people. I love reading things by people I know. Isn't that wonderful? When you're just like, I know them. They're awesome.
Also, like, I think it kind of is maybe like I'll read something that Diana wrote and I'll be surprised, like, oh, wow, really good 12-year-old girl there, and I'll be like, wow. And then I'll get this, because I know a feeling of you as like this, very like smart, competent adult person. And then I'll think about maybe like your Diana-ness kind of like filtered into this girl. And I think there's almost something not non-technical, but that happens on an imaginative level where it's like, oh, a Diana-ness can be distilled somehow into this girl, where the preacher wants to date her mom, and she's like, and just, I don't know, that story was the last one I just read of yours, Diana, and it really reminded me of the feel of that age. And so anyway, there's something about it where it's like, just energetically, I see like, oh, you could sort of, funnel your essence in this direction somehow.
Yeah, I feel like as fiction writers, we're always like, we never write about ourselves, but we're always writing about ourselves. And then the gift that you leave behind in that is just this, that energy that you mentioned, and being able to see that in someone, I think it's a really lovely way of, lovely gift.
And you get a chance then to also like rewrite, to explore the paths of what if, right? You get to like take a circumstance or a happening or a character even and like take them on a different path than the one that you know, and explore like the exponential, you know, fallout from a different decision, right? From a different choice. I would love to know, because you work with each other on feedback specifically, what is the best way that you have found? What are the best questions? How am I going to ask this? I'm always curious to how you get, as a writer, how to make sure you get the feedback that is most helpful to you. So
that's a good skill to have.
Huh?
It's a good skill to have.
It is, right? So like you gotta learn what questions you really have about the specific work. And that's what I usually say is like, think about what your questions are about what you're sharing. Like, you know, come in with your questions and say, you know, not just like, is this working, but, you know, like something more. So your own questions, but what other ways do you find yourself getting really good feedback? How do you open yourself to that?
We did that thing with our group that I thought was kind of cool, where we talked about sort of changing or decolonizing the writers group thing, where you have to like be silent, because we meet on Zoom, you know, like where you have to like be silent, or you don't get to direct the way it goes at all. And, you know, so I think that what we try to do when we send out work is say like, look, these are the things I'm confused about, or that I want to know specifically, or if it's just like, I just want your like, you know, you're sort of like, for me, like, I like it if someone will just basically like live tweet my story, like basically as they're reading it, they'll be like, oh my God, or what? Or, you know, whatever. Like, I just want to know how it's hitting people. And then especially if people are confused. But I feel like that's been kind of nice. It sort of opened it up to be whatever we want it to be. And I guess I'm learning to even know how to ask that question. You know, because before I just be like, oh, whatever you think is, I want to know.
Right.
But yeah, I think you're right. Like, to hone what you want to know is a good skill. So I think maybe I'm learning that a little bit now.
Yeah. There's no like structure in terms of the feedback we share, or rules in terms of who's able to speak, or how much information you can share beforehand. So yeah.
So what you're saying is like, unlike the typical standard MFA lecture or feedback session, workshop session, or often what you will find at writing workshops is this sort of like, the writer is not really in the room, or the writer is going to remain silent while we just sort of discuss or like around that, but instead like really engage and say, what about this? What about that? What about killing your darlings? Do you do a lot of sacrifice around here?
Not too much.
I love it.
I mean, sometimes, but sometimes you just save them for later, for another piece too. And I think with the workshop too, we started Heidi, I think, shared a chapter from Matthew Sales's Craft in the Real World, and that was which I love. And so that was something we kind of tried to create around as well.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right about like sometimes I have to take away my darling from where I thought it should be, but you're right, I do save them. And oftentimes I'll be stuck and I'll be like, what? I just feel like I know what should go here, and I'll be like, oh, that thing that I had to cut from over there, and then you can pop it in there. I am cutting some darlings though now with this whole short story business.
Oh yeah.
Because they can't be like 20 million words.
When you're ready to cut, though, they're no longer your darlings either. They're just, you're ready to go. You move past them.
You know what? That's a good way of looking at it too. That's a really good way. I have a really, really very critically gifted daughter who like I have two daughters, and I go to them each for different things. Like one I tend to go to for story problems, and then the other one I go to for just like brutal editing.
Oh wow.
And so like, how you'll see like a contest or something, and you'll have like a 6,000 word story or a 7,000 word story, and that wants 5,000 words. So like, that's the person that I call. I'm just like, listen, I got it down. I cut 500 words. That's all I could do, and then she can just do the hatchet job and send it back. And it really shows me like, oh, I didn't even need all of that.
Right.
Very nice to make your own editors, Michelle. Good work.
Right. Way to pop out some editors.
I really advise people. It's like, you read them stories, you talk to them about story structure early on with what you're reading. You dissect the TV that you watch, and then pretty soon, I know it's like farmers making their kids work on the farm. right?
Yeah. My mom was a philosopher, and she tried on our untested brains. She tried all her logic questions, and so we walk around being like, "Well, do we really mean what we say when we say what we're saying, or do you hear what I mean when I say what I?" Yeah, there's
Right.
a lot of that. Yeah, what we train our. I also love that you have an editor. And I was a fluffer, so I was the one who was like, my mom's got to get to a certain number of words, and she would kind of state the facts and be like, okay, that's what I got. We're not anywhere near. And so I'd go in and I'd fluff the sentences to add more words.
I love it. Oh, wow. This is my opposite problem, but isn't it funny that, and you know her so well that it probably just sounds like her when you do that for her.
Right.
The same with my kids too. They know how to because that's the thing, that's the advantage of like training your children this way.
Yeah. Hey, to train them in the way you want to go. Okay, before we wrap, I do have to ask, because this is such a heavy time for so many people, and this has been a delightful conversation, and it feels almost this more than I think any other cottage chat has felt a little bit more suspended and more in like the writer world, and we got to just like talk as writers, which I really, really appreciate. That's part of the joy for me, for sure. But we're in a trash fire right now. The world is heavy, and there's a lot of grief. So I'd love to end these chats with talking about joy, talking about what feeds your joy, what has sustained you. Where are those sources of joy outside of obviously a really, really amazing writing group that you cultivated this whole year and almost a half. Like what else do you do to feed your joy?
I mentioned gardening earlier. I was thinking about the things that gave me joy, and we turned this little corner of there was just dirt and like scraggly rocks and branches, and we turned that into our garden. And now I like literally check on it like 3 times a day when I'm home, just to see what's changing and what's growing.
I love that. I'm never much of a gardener, but I think that there's almost something like building something earthy to like pat in your hands or to put your feet down into. Like I'm like, ooh, dirty feet, and now I've like learned to like actually find that ground is really, really important. And then to notice, I love the noticing that you like notice the changes, and that like the cycles continue even as we feel like we're stalled out sometimes, or like we're just in one loop over and over again. It's actually a spiral. It's going somewhere,
Yeah. I think just creating a lot of quiet rituals over the past year has been good.
Quiet rituals. I love that.
I like that too. Yeah, I've been trying to really figure out how to get my joy in line there, because it's been really hard. This has been a very hard year for me, just in my family personally, and then in the world. And I don't know, I tend to, I've been, my quest, I guess I will say, over the last, 4 or 5 years, is to figure out how to not live in emergency mode. And I have to say the pandemic was not helpful in that regard. Like that was what I was already trying to do. And then it's like, there's no emergency in your family at this moment, but guess what? Global emergency. So, but in a way though, it made me have to get very serious about it, because I realized that, if I'm emotionally exhausted and like, my adrenals are all, burned out, and I'm, whatever, I'm not going to be able to sort of bring anything to the table, like for myself or anyone else. So I've been thinking a lot about that. And I've been thinking about, there's this thing, El Mundo Bueno and El Mundo Malo, which I got from a book by Starhawk called The Fifth Sacred Thing. It was a book in the 90s. It was a utopia dystopia, San Francisco and LA. Have you read that?
I have, a long time. Oh my gosh, I'm going to revisit that.
Okay, I actually have another book by Starhawk at home that I found at my mom's place. I'm really excited to pick that up again.
Yeah, is it a fiction? Is it fiction or nonfiction?
No, I think it's one of the Spiral.
The Spiral Dance, yeah.
Yeah, Spiral
That's
Dance.
a great one. Yeah, I remember from that, like from the 80s, from like 80s witching, stuff. But yeah, this is like, it was fiction, and but this idea that they're just like really just like a hair's breadth between them. And really what it's telling me is that like I can live, so like in the good reality on Mundo Bueno, it's not like bad things don't happen. They do all the time. People die, there is tragedy, but it's like in that world, I can still remember to like go swimming in the river, even though the world is, falling apart. I can still like notice the birds. I can still, so I've been doing a journaling thing. The long lead up is I've been doing a journaling thing. Just saying like, in El Mundo Bueno, this is what happens. Like today I, stop what I'm doing at 3:00 and just go and get in the river or run something. Or, I, stop and take a walk, or, we make dinner together, because it's just so easy for me to get in this sort of very blinkered, dealing with everything as if it's the next emergency mode. So so what's really giving me joy is actually stopping and realizing that that even sad things are a normal part of a joyous life. And right now our normal is, really difficult, but I don't think it helps anyone for us not to have joy.
Wow. That's deep, Michelle. Even sad things are a normal part of our of a joyous life.
Yeah.
And I was just earlier in a team meeting today. I was talking about the Buddhist phrase, saying, which is suffer what there is to suffer, enjoy what there is to enjoy, regard both suffering and joy as facts of life. Right. So it's like they are intertwined. They're not. In fact, the joy is brighter because the suffering is there as well. And they won't ever, the idea is not to eliminate, but you said stop and notice. And I love that. Stop and notice what's happening around you. Find a grounding or find a connection, or notice your plants, your herbs growing, and be like, there's the cilantro about to take over. Like just stop and notice. Stop and notice. And how much joy we might find in that. I love that. Thank you both so much. I love this. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to find myself a little bit of earth pat to just pat in my hands for a little bit and reconnect and stop and notice a bit. I love that you have established a writing community. This is notes for anybody watching. What it takes is somebody to say, why don't we do this? And, let's do it once a month. And this is what it takes. And I always worry about being a little bossy and being like, so we can do this and this and this and this. But somebody's got to have the bossiness to say, this is how we're going to do it. And
we have one. We have one in our group. That's not me. I was like, can we please meet? And then it's Roja. Like, okay, this is.
And Roja's like, okay, so this is what we're going to do.
Like,
I love it.
And also, I mean, all of our time zones are insane. Like, they're a mess.
Wow. Right, because the Netherlands, all over the world then.
Yeah.
Wow, this is a global community. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you all are actually the last cohort that got to gather around the farmhouse table for meals. Though we've opened back up, they are meeting in socially distanced in the gathering place, the long building for socially distanced community. And it's great to have, but it's different. It's for sure different. There's a certain thing that happens around that farmhouse table that is magic. I'm glad that you were not cut short, that you were able to do your entire residency and re-enter the world with that in your heart, in your pocket. We're so excited to be about to welcome your book into the world, Diana. No more news yet, but you will be, if you keep an eye on Hedgebrook, we will definitely be announcing. You let us know when it's time to announce all the great news about the forthcoming book for both. And Michelle's just came out, so she's on tour right now. You can find her in different performances. Is it on your website, your tour schedule?
Yes, and actually I need to update it. So if you go there, if you get there in 1 minute, it won't be there, but you're reminding me I need to put it. So, but if you're around tomorrow and you would like to go on the Booksmith and the Bindery, which is a great San Francisco bookstore on Haight Street, was my old neighborhood bookstore. If you would like to see me in conversation with another Hedgebrook alum, MK Chavez, the amazing poet, my best friend. We're gonna so we're gonna talk tomorrow at 6:00, and it will be on the Bindery's Facebook page. And you do have to RSVP, but you can just go to the Bindery website, and it'll be right there, right on the website with their events. And we're gonna talk about Summer in the City of Roses.
That's awesome. I think we might be pulling up that link right now before we go, so we can drop the link as well in the comments. I love the Booksmith. I actually, when my first book, I was in conversation with Arisa White, who is another Hedgebrook alum.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she was in San Francisco. When I lived in the Bay, that's where I launched my book too. So the Booksmith is awesome little independently owned bookstore. It survived. I'm so glad it survived. It's been doing some really amazing things, and here it is. So
thank
you
you.
can find the event for tomorrow. So if you want to hear some from the Summer of the City of Roses, then you join Michelle and MK Chavez for another Hedgebrook event. Essentially, I'm just claiming ownership right now of it.
You really might as well. You really might as well.
Yeah, I mean, when two Hedgebrook alum come together, magic happens. That's for sure. Thank you so much, Diana. Thank you, Michelle. This is a great idea. I'm so glad to meet you, Diana. Through Michelle, she was like, I know somebody I would love to be in conversation with.
Normally in Seattle, so I just thought, yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. That was perfect. Thank you both so much. And also, I wanted to say thank you all for joining us today for Hedgebrook's Cottage Chat. This is the sixth one that we've had. We started in February, and they're all available. Almost all of them are available on our YouTube channel. This one will be available too. So if you know people who would be inspired or moved or really need to hear the words that Michelle and Diana shared with us today, please let them know that they can check it out on our YouTube channel. And thank you again for joining us, for paying attention, for checking in with us. Let us know if there are Hedgebrook alum you want to see in conversation, because we will reach out and ask them to talk. I hope you all are finding ways to feed your joy and having a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. It is Wednesday. What is time? Time is weird. Wednesday afternoon. My name is Amber Flame. I'm so honored and pleased to be Hedgebrook's program director and alum. And I am so glad that these wonderful writers both were willing to join me in chat. Be well, everyone. Take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you soon.